Sorry, I'm just sleeping. John Bafton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of points to make. They've been slightly touched upon earlier. In the evaluation, it's noted in the brief summary, under management and implementation, it states there about weaknesses and financial control. Now, I know, Mrs. Gaffey, you mentioned earlier that your audit was not your area. However, I feel that it's vital. If you've got a document of this magnitude, and I gather, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you said it cost something like 4.2 million euros to get this evaluation done. If you're going to spend that sort of money, public money, I think it also needs to include the actual figures in there about audit. And what I would like to know from you is two things, really. The amount of money which has been allocated in the first instance through that period to countries that you know about that should not have been allocated via fraud or other means, and if it was spent in accordance with what it should have been spent on. That's the first point. And secondly, can you then, bearing in mind that this did cost 4.2 million euros, can you justify that expenditure, and can you tell me if you believe that is value for money? Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
In terms of the people and the places that haven't applied for funding, it wasn't a specific focus of the evaluation. However, it is very much what we're trying to incorporate into our evaluation methodology now through using the counterfactual, that we try to compare the people who get support with the people who don't get support. And part of this exercise means that you have to understand what is the selection procedure, what are the criteria, why do people decide not to apply for funding. But I think we need to do that in the individual intervention areas. I don't think you can draw conclusions across the board on this issue. And it's very much an issue I would like to see Member States investing in as well, to really see are the programmes really targeting the people that they should be targeting. Another evaluation study we're going to launch very shortly is we're going to look at the achievement of objectives over time. Because we know that just to say, here's a target in a programme, did I achieve it, did I not, it doesn't really tell you much about performance. We're more interested in whether, because targets sometimes are set incorrectly, through either wanting to set targets too low or through ignorance. But we really want to see what is changing in relation to the needs in the regions. So this is a study that we are going to launch imminently to look at these kind of issues, and we're going to try and incorporate it into our counterfactual work. I think you're right in terms of, what we found in our evaluation was for the short 2004-2006 period for the EU10, they managed to draw down the money correctly, which was a big achievement because everybody said that this wouldn't happen. However, it's clear that with the increase in volume in the funds for the 2007-2013 period, there is a capacity issue there. And one of the things that comes out of the evaluation is a suggestion that we should facilitate more exchanges of experience. And if we can identify areas where there is proven success in Europe in terms of implementing policy areas, why can't we exchange practice in this area? We know, for instance, Spain is good at building rail. We know there are problems in getting rail projects implemented in Eastern Europe. Can we actually bring people together and get the lessons, rather than coming from us in the Commission? Can we actually identify the good practice in different parts of Europe and put it together? And this is one of the issues that we would like to broaden this inter-regional cooperation from focusing just on interreg issues into the big mainstream issues. In terms of looking at projects and evaluating them and when we evaluate them, this is why we're launching the study of some 94-99 projects, because we want to see what are the impacts in the longer term. Very often if you think of the 2000-2006 period, I know you said to us that this was ancient history. It's not quite so ancient, because in fact there are still some countries that are still spending the money from the last period. And in fact, most of our countries throughout 2000 and throughout 2007 and 2008 were engaged in significant expenditure in relation to the 2000-2006 funding, which means that when we come to evaluate, we have schemes which are barely finished, are not quite finished, and everybody tells it's too early to evaluate. I spend my life dealing with people who tell me it's too early to evaluate or too late to evaluate. So there's never a perfect time. But we should get some insights from our study of 94, 99 projects. I'm not sure it'll all be good news either, but I think it's something that we need to invest in. In terms of unit costs, this is something we did incorporate into this evaluation exercise. We had a particular work package which examined the unit costs of large infrastructure projects. They concluded that, first of all, that there is no database publicly available of unit costs in Europe or anywhere else, really, either. And they concluded and recommended that the Commission was uniquely placed to construct such a database, which would have the value of increasing knowledge on unit costs, which would help our desk officers in judging major project applications when they come in, and indeed Member States in preparing them. We are building on that work through the Cohesion Fund evaluation. So we aim to develop, our database is quite small now because it's only focused on the ERDF. It's only got, I think, is it 96? 96 projects in it. But so clearly we need a database with thousands of projects in it. But we will get another 500 projects into the database through the Cohesion Fund evaluation, and we hope to build on this work in the future, which should give us much more good hard data in relation to unit costs and how much unit costs should be, and efficient use of the funds, which is an area where we don't have so much data at the moment, because at the moment our physical indicators are not linked to our categories of expenditure. And this is something we would like to change for the future, that we would know that we would have a direct link between what has been reported to have been achieved and the resources spent. I come to the last question. We can't evaluate everything. So we decided, since we had a lot of audit work that is published, that we wouldn't focus particularly on audit issues in this evaluation, although they do come up in the evaluation. We do not have evidence in here about how much money was allocated that should not have been allocated, because we have an audit function that carries out that work. And it's a view we took, it's a position we took, which you may not agree with, but we did have a rationale for it. We spent 4.2 million on this evaluation, which involved 16 evaluation contracts, plus a synthesis report, lots of different evaluation teams working across Europe. We had 230 programmes across Europe. We had programmes which ranged in size from 6 million ERDF to 6 billion ERDF. We had all the various range of areas of intervention that the ERDF supports. And I would say it does represent good value for money, because I see we have insights, we have data, we have policy learning that we didn't have before. In some cases, what it does is generate even more questions for us, but I think we are moving more and more towards a focus on saying we have to be able to demonstrate the results of the policy, whether they are good or bad. And I think it's worthwhile investing in that outcome. In terms of the value for money of the evaluation exercise, when I look at how hard some of our evaluators worked, I genuinely think that it was good value for money, given the situation of the data that is available on the ground, the data that is gathered by the different and reported by the different member states, and really the interest and commitment of the evaluators, which in some cases went way beyond what we were paying them for, because they really wanted to generate learning about what the policy was achieving, in the interests not just of accounting for what happened 2000-2006, but really focusing in on what do we actually need to change to make this policy more effective now and into the future. But that would be my view of the value for money issue. Thank you.